Yeah, good morning, dear students. In this semester, already I introduced literary theory, contemporary literary theory. From the unit 2, the first topic, the object of study, that was written by Ferdinand de Saussure. Actually, this is just one chapter or introductory chapter in the book, A Course in General Linguistics, that was written by Ferdinand de Saussure. The most significant work that was written by Ferdinand de Saussure, A Course in General Linguistics. He is the proponent of structuralism, or his ideology or his proposals led to form structuralist study. So, already in the first semester in linguistics, you might have studied. Already we discussed some points in that. The structural linguist, they made their discussions based on the proposals that were proposed by Ferdinand de Saussure. Already I told you in the first semester, especially in my paper, he distinguished the words language, lang, and paro. Language, universal kind, or especially human characteristic, which distinguished a man from other animals. So that unique feature which the human beings have in general is considered to be the universal language. Okay, the universal language which has 4 basic elements: sound, syllable, word, and sentence. Okay, that universal language does not refer a particular language such as Hindi or English or Sanskrit or any other languages like English and Spanish or Latin, Greek. Universal language is the language which is the part of all the human culture. In general, that universal language in general can be called as English language or Spanish language or Greek language, based on the people using that particular language. Okay, these individual particular languages have their own system of vowels and consonants, the combination of vowels and consonants, the representative sounds and syllables, and the words that are formed which gives a particular meaning and which have some denotative meaning and a connotative meaning. These words may be different, but the sense, the psychological phenomena is, or the cognitive phenomena, that is the same for all the human beings. Okay, for example, if you take an animal which has a long trunk and has 2 long teeth, which are white in color, and which has a tail and which is big in size. That may be in Telugu we can call Enugu, in English we can call elephant. The same object, the same animal may be called with another name in another language. Likewise, for almost in all the languages there are particular names for the same object. Okay, so that system of representing a particular animal with a particular word in different languages may differ the individual languages or the particular languages, but universally this is one system. This is one abstract system to represent a particular animal for our communication purpose. All right. So, dear students, yeah, another distinction he made is difference. Okay. CAT is cat because it is not rat, it is not bat, and it is not mat. Right? Okay. Coexistence of two opposite things he proposed. Okay. And another thing he proposed is that everything is structural. Everything is structural. Okay, the language we are using is structural. Of course, it was applied, the idea is applied to different studies also, different disciplines also. So, the scholars like Claude Lévi-Strauss, Gerald Janet, and other people, they applied the same term to their studies in their disciplines, and they called their disciplines, that is culture and anthropology and sociology. Everything is structural. Even the literature is structural, the poem is structural, the culture is structural, even everything what we have as an art is cultural. That's what the impact of Ferdinand de Saussure's classification, Ferdinand de Saussure's distinction, and his ideology, the impact of his ideology we can find. Okay, when he wrote the book, the course in general linguistics, he explained how to study a language, and he practically conducted some research, and he studied the language, and he proposed some generalized facts or formulas, we can say. Okay, before going to discuss all his points and before going to present his result of the study, first he defined what is the object of his study. As a researcher, it is common to explain what may be the object of study. Okay, so here we are going to know, or we are going to study what may be the object of study. What we are going to study here, we are going to study the language in general, universal, not a specific. But to study the universal language, we need some sample, but that sample is surely a particular language. Before Saussure, the study of language or philology, as it was usually called, had been essentially historical, tracing change and development in phonology and semantics within and between languages or groups of languages. But Saussure argued that a scientific linguistics could never be based on such a diachronic study, but only by approaching language as a synchronic system. He distinguished a synchronic study of language and diachronic study of language. When you study the language, considering its history, tracing out its historical background, its history, ages back or years back or decades back, understanding how the development of that language took place and how the changes were made, how the meaning took its meaning, or how a meaning is understood in the past. Historically, that may be studied. It is usually the practice before this Ferdinand de Saussure's ideology, or when this before this Ferdinand de Saussure proposed the study of language. So Saussure argued that a scientific linguistics could never be based on such a diachronic study, but only by approaching language as a synchronic system. That is, a system of which all the elements and rules are in the theory simultaneously available to the user of the language. Okay, what is available at the present user of the language or at the contemporary time, what the user uses, how the user uses a particular word or a sentence to convey his meaning. That can be only studied, that can be only understood as a system. Okay, all the elements and the rules can be studied from this perspective only. Then the language, the study of language may be realistic and rationalistic and scientific. This is the opinion of Ferdinand de Saussure. So, Saussure's discussion of the object of study in linguistics depends crucially on a distinction between language, lang and parole. Okay, translate in English, it is translated as a language, the universal human phenomena of language. A language, that is a particular language system. For example, English and speech. That is lang, we can that is parole, we can say. That is language in use, specific speech act. Specific speech act. Try to understand this point, dear students. Language, the universal human phenomena, and a language, the particular language system, a particular language system, and speech, that is language in use, or the active language, or the performed language, or the specific speech acts, we can say. Language is made up of words. And another seminal contribution of Shastra's was his analysis of the world as a verbal sign having two sides, an acoustic image or sound pattern and a concept. We can find in any verbal, in any language, we can find the verbal sign having two sides. The verbal sign, the oral sign, or the linguistic sign having two sides. One is acoustic image or sound, pattern, and another side concept. What is that acoustic sound or image pattern, and what is its concept? Double side. The former he called significant. Okay, and the translation we can say signal, and the other signify, translated as a significance. Okay, significant and significance. Significant as a signal, and a signify, that is a signification, we can say. Okay, Saussure's crucial point was that the connection between the two is arbitrary. His crucial point is the connection between two is arbitrary. Okay, this arbitrariness is important. That is to say, a convention, arbitrary in the sense a convention accepted by all the users of a given language, by not the result of some existential link between word and thing. Okay, if there is no proper reason to have that connection, then we can say it is arbitrary. It is just conventional. People call that. People used that. People connected that. Actually, there is no proper reason to connect like that. Okay, you can't ask why your mother or your parents gave you a particular name such as Raju or Ravi or any other. Okay, likewise, there is no particular reason. Of course, nowadays the people are having reasons. The people are having reasons, of course, that is the different kind. Okay, if there is no particular relation to have the link between a thing and its image or its a code, a relation between a thing and its concept, or an image and its concept, then it is called arbitrary, that is convention. Okay, so dear students, in this topic, we are going to study this topic with three different headings. One is We are going to study this with three subheadings. One is on defining a language. Okay, first he defined the language. Okay, his discussion is on defining a language. That is the first one. Second one, a linguistic structure. Its place among the facts of a language. Its place among the facts of a language. And next one, languages and their place in human affairs and semiology. Okay, in this way, we are going to study this topic. Okay, on the object of study, the first topic on defining a language. What is this? What is it that linguistics set up to analyze? What linguistics was set out to analyze? What this linguistics is going to analyze? Okay, what is that subject that can be analyzed by this linguist? What is the actual object of study in its entirety? What is going to be object of study in this entire case of the study of language? The question is particularly difficult one. Yeah, we shall see what later. Okay, now let us grasp the nature of the difficulty. Okay, other sciences are provided with objects of study given in advance, which are then examined from different points of view. Nothing like that is the case in linguistics. Try to understand this point carefully, dear students. Other sciences are provided with the objects of study given in advance. Okay, if you take any particular science, the objects of the study may be given in advance, but the case in linguistics is not the same. Okay, when the objects of study given in advance, then they are examined from different points of view. But here the case is not like that. In linguistics, this is not the case. The objects of study are not given in advance. Randomly or with some explorative mind, they started to study. Even having no clarity what to study, these scholars, these linguists, they started to study. The object is not given in advance of the viewpoint. Far from it. Rather, one might say that it is the viewpoint adopted which creates the object. In this linguistics, viewpoint adopted, created here. When we have a particular viewpoint that adopted, what is the viewpoint we adopted that creates the object here. Further, there is nothing to tell us in advance whether one of these ways of looking at it is prior or superior to any of the others. So, linguistic phenomena always present two complementary facets, each depending on the other. Okay, the ear perceives articulated syllables as auditory impressions. The one is, the ear perceives articulated syllables as auditory impressions, but the sounds in question would not exist without the vocal organs. Okay, the ear simply receives the articulated syllables as auditory impressions. When the speaker speaks something, we may listen. Our ear simply receives those auditory impressions. Those are articulated syllables, but the sounds in question would not exist without the vocal organs. But when we question, Okay, when we hear, then we can easily hear, but when we want to question, we should be able to produce those vocal sounds. We should be able to produce those auditory impressions, those articulated sounds we have to produce. There would be no end, for instance, without these two complementary aspects to it. So one can't equate the language simply with what the ear hears, what the ear, our ear hears. One can't divorce what is heard from oral articulation. Okay, 2 points are important. Okay, oral articulation and our reception of articulated sounds. Okay, our production and our reception both are important. Okay, we can't deny anything. We can't deny anything. And simply we can't depend on one thing. Simply we can't depend on articulated sounds. We can't depend on auditory impressions that were articulated by somebody else. And we can't fully depend on the sounds what we can make. Right? So here these two facets, the complementary facets, are important. Okay, this is one discussion. Okay, the articulated syllables as auditory impressions are important, as well as the sounds we can produce we can produce with our vocal organs. That is also important. But second point, but even if we ignored this phonetic reality, would language then be reducible to phonetic facts? No. Speech sounds are only the instrument of thought. Here another distinction. Okay, in the first point, in the first phenomena, okay, this Ferdinand de Saussure analyzed how these articulated syllables are different from auditory impressions. Okay, articulating the syllables or articulating the sounds is not the simple thing, is not the same as auditory impressions, what we receive from the speaker, which were articulated. So now here he is going to make another distinction, that speech sounds are only the instrument of thought. Speech sounds are only the instrument of thoughts and have no independent existence. Speech sounds have no independent existence. Here another complementarity emerges, and one of great importance also. A sound itself a complex articulatory unit. In turn combines with an idea to form another complex unit, both physiological and psychological. Right? So, when we receive a particular speech sound, or the language, the speech sounds in the language are not the simple one. Okay, they are articulated sounds as well as auditory impressions. And that's why the speech sounds in the language are complex. But here, Ferdinand de Saussure is going to make another complexity, and he is going to propose another complexity. All right. So he's distinguishing, okay, the speech sound from the thought. He says that speech sounds are just instruments of thoughts. Okay, when we have a thought in our mind, that a thought can be expressed in speech sounds. Without such thoughts, without having any thought, we can't express anything. Okay, that's why he proposes that speech sounds are not independent. Speech sounds are not independent. Okay, a sound, okay, itself is a complex auditory articulatory unit. In turn combines with an idea to form another complex unit. Okay, already a sound is a complex unit having auditory sounds, auditory and articulatory unit. Okay, auditory and articulatory sounds. Okay, a sound is already complex unit having auditory and articulatory units. Now another he's this Ferdinand sir is going to add another complexity for this unit, that is idea, an idea. Okay, he's attributing an idea to this complexity. So now the sound in a language is not simply a sound in a language is not simply auditory sound and articulatory sound. Okay, and now it is another thing, another feature was added, that is an idea. Okay, that idea, both the physiological and psychological, both physiological and psychological. Okay, now another point he is going to add, that language has an individual aspect and a social aspect. Okay, see again another distinction. Language has an individual aspect and a social aspect. That's why language is a social phenomena as well as an individual phenomena. Okay, surely the producer of the language is individual, but it is the part of the group, it is the part of the society. Alright? So, one is not conceivable without the other. Okay, though, language. Okay, when we have a particular expression, if that is not acceptable in the society, then our expression has no value. Our expression has no significance. Whatever we speak, that should have the social value, or that should be conventionalized. That should be the expression or the word or the idea that is conventionalized among the people of the society or among the people of a particular speech community. Without having that, we can't make any expression. Right? So, this means language at any given time involves an established system and an evolution. Okay, language at any given time involves an established system and an evolution. Yeah, many a times you can have this doubt whether it is already established system or is on time or in just an evolution day by day, or the development is the sustainable development is there in the language. Okay, whether the language changes day by day. These are the questions we may have in our mind. The connection between the two is so close that it is hard to separate them. Okay, of course, we can't say is it the present or a product of the past. It is at any given time, there is possibility for having two. For considering the language as two systems, established system and this evolution system. So the connection between the two is so close that it is hard to separate. Okay, at first it looks very easy to distinguish between the system and its history, between what is and what it was. Okay, earlier we may have a word, okay, that is accepted by the people. For example, madam is a word. Madam is a word. Okay, actually in the ancient period, in ancient period, that word madam was used to call a particular woman who is the head of the prostitution house. Head of the prostitution house. Okay, of course, it is no more use in present day. If it is really in the present day usage, then no woman like to be called madam. Now that head of the institution, head of the prostitution house, okay, that word head of the prostitution house, that is called madam, now became the dignified word as to honor, to respect the woman. Okay, likewise. Okay, there is a change, no doubt at all. Okay, still following the established system, we have to use the language. At the same time, the change is not deniable. The change is not ignorable. As there is a change, the established system is not ignorable. We have to balance both in the language. So, likewise, Ferdinand de Saussure, he proposed such ideas. Okay, they strengthen the remaining points we shall discuss in the next class. Until then, listen again and again this video so that you can understand what are his basic arguments in this topic. Thank you, Anandal. Have a nice